Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for another Aptem session. We'll just give it a few more moments whilst we wait for everyone else to join, as we still have quite a few people logging in. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, where Mark Abrahams, Head of Research and Analytics at Aptem, will be diving into the Q2 24-25 DfE apprenticeship data. We'll be spotlighting latest trends and demonstrating best practices for data-driven decision-making using Aptem's free tool, the Aptem Intelligence Dashboard. We have close to 200 people registered for today, and we are truly pleased to share the latest analysis with you all. My name is James Templeman, Marketing Manager here at Aptem, and I'll be supporting the running of today's session. Before Mark starts his presentation, I will quickly draw your attention to a few housekeeping items. If you could change slide, please. Thank you. So first of all, we will be recording this session, and everyone who is registered will receive a copy by email. Please feel free to share this with your colleagues in your network. You are muted throughout the session, so if you need assistance, please use the chat function up in the top right corner. You can also ask questions in the questions panel, and we'll get to as many of these as we can towards the end of the session. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
So quick summary of Mark Abrahams. So he is Aptem's Head of Research and Analytics, and he has extensive experience of applying data analytics to training, recruitment, and apprenticeship programs to identify predictive trends and support organizational efficiency. So he is very well placed to be running today's session. And on that note, I will pass over to Mark.
Thank you, James. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's session. Basically, a very brief agenda, really, which is to provide a kind of a brief overview of the challenges of market analysis for the apprenticeship data, the sources of data available that are out there, what we can use with the data, and introduce the Aptem Intelligence Dashboard. I will be providing kind of a walkthrough of the dashboard, and after that you're welcome to go onto our marketing site, register to use the dashboard if you haven't already done so, and make use of the data. Just bear in mind that it's probably useful not to jump on it at the same time as I'm doing the demo, only because it's sort of 200 people trying to use it at the same time is not always the best performance of the tool, which is fair enough. Okay. So today also is basically the 6th anniversary of, well, actually it's a couple of days past the 6th anniversary of the tool. So let's just start with the story. Back in 2018, I was working on an internal project with our marketing and business development teams. Aptem as a business is data-driven. We take a data-driven approach to basically everything we do. And at the time, we were trying to explore how we could make sense of what was going on in the apprenticeship market, identifying which providers were growing, which standards and at the time frameworks were still being used, and use that information data to inform our basically our business development and marketing activity. And we didn't really have any data. We didn't have any real data. Even simple things as identifying at the time who had recently joined ROAP wasn't always easy to find. We had to go to a particular register and the website, or look out for anecdotal information. So What I then did at the time was we looked at what was went out and looked at what was publicly available in terms of data, what was possible, and it turned out there's quite a lot of information out there. So here are some examples of what was out there, and in fact, due to the .gov data transparency policy, there is lots of useful information. None of it is stored in one place. It's often stored in places which are kind of unexpected in terms of websites. It's not in standard formats, and it created all kinds of interesting challenges. So here are some examples as a walkthrough of what we had to deal with. And the Aptem Intelligence Dashboard tool saves you the trouble because we take data from various sources, lots of sources, and put it all together. So obviously the starting place was the Apprenticeship Provider and Assessment Register, which was obviously previously called ROAT. That's in apprenticeshipseducation.gov.uk. Then you've got IFATE information, completely different website, completely different format, but at least one can actually click on a link and download the data in one go, which is helpful. You have some data published by the ESFA, now DfE. If you go to Explore Education Statistics, there are a whole range of data tables regarding provider starts, provider achievements, all tagged by UK PRN. There's information related to where learners are located, what standards they're doing, and lots of information, but it's not. It's all spread across different data sets, different data tables. We also have achievement rates at a more detailed level, basically by standard, by framework name, etc. Again, in a different file. Funding allocation data, which is again available, but another part of the .gov website, and also hard to find unless you know exactly where to look and start using the .gov data search function. We have inspection data and outcomes of inspection and monitoring visits, which also available but somewhere else. And finally, there's information that isn't publicly available unless you make a Freedom of Information request. So we actually went out and made a number of FOI requests from the DfE statistics departments. One example might be the learning difficulty and disability rates for each apprenticeship standard. That data is not actually published anywhere on the .gov website. We've made FOI requests, and we've actually published some analysis of that in recent months. So you have all of these data sets, and then we have the challenge of pulling all of that data together, forcing it into a usable format, collating and matching it up. So we've got all the data linked to a particular provider in one place, etc. And even basic challenges. Here's some output screenshot of the inspection outcome data. And interestingly, I'm not quite sure why it's presented in this way, but you get an Excel file, which is, or actually you get separate text files with the information in, and you have inspections for the current year in one worksheet, inspections for previous years in another worksheet, you have monitoring visits in a different worksheet, and again, different worksheet. So we had this challenge of having to pull all of this data into a coherent format in order that we could analyze the apprenticeship market. So in terms of how we went about this, we were using this information for trying to understand the apprenticeship market, understand what was available, And initially we were using this to drive our business development and marketing processes. What then happened was back in 2018, as initially this process started, the kind of whole point of collecting data is going through a process of considering what are the business questions you're trying to answer. What are you trying to achieve with the data? So at the time, we wanted to know who were the largest providers, what were they delivering, what were the kind of volumes at different apprenticeship levels and standards, and also how this related to funding and revenue. And we were using this data to pull together kind of sales and business packs. A funny story really at the time, from the public data, my colleagues were able to turn up at sales meetings with presentations detailing what your provider was delivering, what their achievement rates, and then from that an estimate of their revenue from apprenticeship delivery, with a calculated business case, obviously for using Aptem. And feedback was, from some providers was, you seem to know rather a lot about our business, which helped the discussions. But that's what you can do with the public data if you go out there and pull it all together. So we had all of this data. We then pulled it into a kind of Power BI dashboard for internal use. And then we decided, well, it's public data. It's not ours. Rather than hold on to all of the data, we decided to make it public anyway. And what we did at the time was release something which was initially called the Aptem Apprenticeship Market Report, first released on the 19th of April, 2019. And it had the following limited set of features, which was to explore which apprenticeships were trending, identify which providers were delivering particular apprenticeships, and basically list all providers who had delivered a particular standard or framework along with the starts for the time previous year, 2017-18. And it was made available free to use on the Aptem website. And over time, what was now called AID has been kind of updated and developed, partly actually from feedback from customers and other individuals who've looked at it. So the purpose of AID, from our perspective, really is to present publicly available data on apprenticeship delivery in England, enable anyone who uses it to kind of explore apprenticeship delivery, not only across England, but even within specific locations, so you can filter down to a particular local authority district. Use it to identify apprenticeship trends, either nationally or locally, and even gather information on providers. There's some information on subcontractors and competitors in there as well. The DfE publishes the data quarterly, but there's a 3-month lag. So in typically the data for the half year ending January 2025 was released actually the end of March, so only a few weeks ago. The full year data is published in November, when the R14s have been kind of finalised. So even though the year end itself was in July, there's an R14 process, and the contract values, for example, are published twice a year. So we have this challenge, and achievement rates are only published annually, and again, there's also with those a 12-month lag. So some of the information is not exactly the most up to date, but it certainly gives you an understanding of what's going on. The DfE has its own kind of Explore Education apprenticeship page, and it does present some headline facts and figures, and here's a quick screenshot from the current one, which was updated, as I say, a few weeks ago. You can go to the website address there and look at it yourselves if you wish. But the information there is quite limited, and it's not allowing you to dig down into the data in an interactive manner, which is one of our intentions. So yeah, so moving on, you can download some of the data and kind of start looking at trends. you need to export it and collate it, as we've already discussed. Quick example, the apprenticeship market is a bit like a Pareto curve. For example, if we look at the Q1 starts, the starts for August 24 to October 24, their apprenticeship starts on 564 standards across 1,163 active providers, and 338 of these providers had less than 20 starts. As you can see from the chart, in terms of the actual standards, the largest 60 standards accounted for 70% of all apprenticeship starts. Actually, the top 20 accounted for 40% of all apprenticeship learners. And we can generate similar kind of analysis for provider size and other kind of focuses. So let's just move on to AID itself and the detail of the Aptem Intelligence Dashboard. It has grown and developed over time. Currently, we have 9 pages, broadly with the aim of answering the question, who delivers what and where. The overall trends is the starting point on page 1 in terms of growth on apprenticeship starts. There's individual provider analysis. There are options for comparing provider starts. There's a page related to the details for a specific apprenticeship standards. You can dig into a particular standard to say, okay, if you as a business, as a provider, are delivering a particular standard, you can look at who else is delivering it, what their volumes are. You can explore where different providers are delivering, who delivers apprenticeships in a selected local authority, and also overall trends in subject areas for a selected authority or even nationally. Before I actually demonstrate AID, I think it's probably useful just for you to, as an audience, or individually, please feel free to share your ideas in the chat. Consider maybe how you'd like to use it. It might be for demand analysis, which apprenticeships are growing fastest, which are the most popular. It might be for competitor analysis, which providers in my area are growing, who else is delivering the same apprenticeship. I mean, we as ourselves, Aptem, we update AID every 3 months as the new data becomes available. I know certainly we have some customers and contact partners who use it for competitor analysis, and I've received phone calls before asking why, when new data's arrived, why AID hasn't been updated fast enough, which is kind of interesting. So, if you have any thoughts and you want to share them, please put them in the chat. Again, with any business questions, and we can use that information to enhance and improve the tool as it is today. Okay, before I actually demonstrate the tool, I should highlight that it's based on AID is built using Power BI. The interface is supposed to be intuitive, and however, there are a number of kind of not obvious features about the interface. So I probably wanted to talk through those, and I'll demonstrate some of those as well. But it's useful because when you interact with the Power BI based report, sometimes you can dig down into the information, but it's not always clear how you do that if you've not encountered them before. By the way, the great thing about Power BI is if you were, for example, to collect the data yourself, is that the version you run on your own computer as a desktop is free, but you've got to pay to kind of securely host reports and dashboards for others to view. So it's probably worth mentioning before we start using AID. In Power BI, you can right-click on any chart or map and select an option that shows it as a table of data. So sometimes you might be looking at a chart and you can't see the numbers clearly. When you see it as a table, it's much easier to do that. You can hover at the top right of any table and chart and click on something called focus mode. So you may have a chart that's quite small, and this will expand it and you'll be able to see it in more detail. One can also hover over any item in a chart or table, and often this displays more details of the data in the tooltip, which again could be easy to read. Some of these tables are not the largest and most visible. Finally, Power BI dashboards, you can often filter and use selectors to filter the information. And these are typically, you click on one item, it will select that one, but deselect previous item. If you use the control button and click, it allows you to select multiple items. And finally, clicking on an item on a table or chart allows you to filter the data on the page, and then clicking again on that item will unfilter it. Okay, here's the front page of the Aptem Intelligence Dashboard. If you would just bear with me, I need to switch screens in order to show you the tool itself. So bear with me a second. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see that I've now switched to a web browser. This is the aptem.co.uk website. To access aid, if you go to resources and you click on the option Aptem Intelligence Dashboard, you're then brought to the landing page. You then have access to an older version of the tool. And what you will need to do is click on the register to view all data. It will take you to a form, and that will enable you to access for free, there's no charge, is the current version of the data. The sample for version on this page is actually a couple of years out of date now. So I'm going to jump to the actual current dashboard. I'm showing it in a browser window, so hopefully it's much clearer than trying to show it embedded in our website. So the first page basically gives you a headline page showing the year-to-date starts. We're currently showing the half-year starts from August to January and comparing to the previous year. And as you can see, we've got a very slight growth. We've got 1% growth of starts compared to last year, last academic year, that is, for the same time period. And most of that growth is broadly in the your slight reductions in level 2 and 3, and slight increases in level 6 and level 7 apprenticeship starts, and also level 4. In terms of inspection grades, again, we're seeing, compared to last year, much more good and outstanding inspection grades being awarded, and far fewer requires improvement and inadequate grades compared to last year. The table here also shows the apprenticeships with the largest year-on-year growth. Now some of these look very large, like multi-channel marketeer, but this is actually a new apprenticeship standard, which multi-channel marketeer replaces the previous digital marketeer level 3 standard. So it's kind of a like-for-like comparison. And you can see the percentages. Business analyst is growing strongly. Paramedic is growing. Senior people professionals also growing. There are other standards which are declining. Dental nurse integrated is declining quite dramatic, well, not dramatically by 40%, but that's actually also, that standard is due to be retired next year. And there's a new dental nurse GMC 2023 standard, which is being introduced, and there are new learners already enrolled on that. You can see that what the overall trends are. If I hover over the top of the chart and I click on this focus mode icon, you will see that the table is displayed more clearly if you wanted to, and you could zoom in on this. If I hover over a chart, say this one, Ofsted grades awarded for 2024-25 so far, I click on focus mode. Oh, you see the chart more clearly, and you can right click on the chart and shows a table, and it will show the chart and also the actual percentages. Not useful in this particular table, but useful in other parts of the tool and report. Okay, let's move on to the next page. One other thing about the interface is that if you click on the menu, it will show the titles of each of the pages, and it's easier to jump to a page rather than having to use the back forward buttons here. Okay. So moving on to provider analysis. By default, this page shows the number of starts for every standard, currently covering the year to date and also the past 2 years, as well as full year numbers for the past 3 years. You can sort the table. It's currently sorted, I think, by number of starts, and by clicking that way, we can reverse the order of the starts. I could actually sort the table by the percentage change from this year to last year. I've got to scroll across a little bit. So these are the supposedly fastest growing ones, where obviously there were very few enrolled last year, and and therefore with new enrolments, it appears to be much faster growing, high growth. Okay. So as we can see, as we can see, in terms of apprenticeships, the apprenticeship with the largest number of starts this year is early years educator, with 9,465. We also have accountancy or taxation professionals, got 6,000, business administration over 6,000, team leader over 6,000. This one has been at the top of the list previously, and so on. We can also filter the data by a particular provider or UKPRN number. So I'm going to choose, for example, Reading as an example. So if I click on University of Reading, it filters the data, and what we can see is that University of Reading, at the time I know the institution, are delivering senior leader, about 300 of them currently started this year, chartered manager, and in previous years they've delivered the operations manager standard and the senior compliance and risk specialist standard. If I follow the table across, you can see the percentage change for each individual standard, the number of starts in the full year last year. So actually, this half year, their senior leader program has already had more starts than the number of starts in the previous year, and they're getting close on chartered manager degree. And also you can see the funding level. We also have some additional information. We have these headline information in terms of the number of contractors, total number of live apprenticeships delivered by the provider, overall count of starts, and the totals are also visible in bold at the bottom of the table. But if you have a number of apprenticeship standards delivered by a particular provider, you'll need to scroll the table. The latest Ofsted grade, and if you click on this link here, it will then take you to the it will then take you to the Ofsted page, and it gives you the direct link to the University of Reading, or the provider Ofsted page, where you can access their report. Okay, back to aid. We also give information on the achievement rate, where it's available, and we also calculate something called what we're calling the annual book value. Basically, it's an estimate of the kind of average apprenticeship funding revenue across the year for the number of starts in that year. So what we do is we take the number of starts on a particular program, we take the funding level for that program, divide it by the kind of expected duration given in the IFA website for that course and that standard, and then calculate what it would be averaged across the year. So you can see some kind of financial figures. Finally, on this particular part, if the provider has had a procurement allocation, we then put that data here, and again, that's available, not for the University of Reading. I'll maybe find another provider where it is. The more detail little icon here, if we mouse over it, it gives you a quick summary of some information around the growth, percentage of learners under 19, University of Reading in this case, they're all kind of on degree courses, needs to be 100%. And the percentage levy and so forth. If I unclick here on Reading, we go back to the main table. If I just select another provider, South Essex, we can see that South Essex College for Further and Higher Education, they have some significant apprenticeship funding allocations, and those figures are provided here. Okay, let's move on to the next page. So in this this instance, this is an example of this page gives you an overall count of learners per provider. So one can search for more than one provider and select them. So if I initially select, say, University of Reading, if I then select South Essex College, and I hold you can see University of Reading is already selected here. If I hold the control key down and then click on South Essex, that also is then highlighted and appears in the table. So you can use this table basically to build up, for example, selecting a number of providers who you might be interested in, or if you're a provider, then competitors, to see what their overall starts and growth is for the current year. The next page is the achievements page, and what this does is, again, allows you to search by provider. The initial table again gives accounts of accounts of achievements for each year. This, as I say, and at the very end of the table, there's also the achievement rate for that particular provider. So I'll use Reading as an example. So the University of Reading, basically 147 achievements in the current year, 169 last year, and their overall achievement rate was 68.9. In the lower table, what we can then see is how many of those were by standard or apprenticeship program, and this the number of change in achievements. The DfE doesn't publish the percentage achievement for a particular standard for a provider. So you can either get the achievement rate for a standard overall or the achievement rate for a provider overall, but not cut down to that level of detail. If you are interested in a particular standard, then we go to the providers per standard framework, or page 5 of AID. I'm going to choose carpentry and joinery just as an example. What this page does, it provides some information on, if you filter and select a particular standard by title, it will then list which providers are offering that standard and have had learned starts in previous years. They're all listed. As we can see, that for carpentry and joinery, Exeter College currently has the highest number of starts at 75, up from 68 in previous years. That's a 10% change. And their full year for last year was 67, so they've actually got more starts in this half year than previously. You can see at the bottom of the page the overall number of starts in previous years for this particular standard, and it's also presented in the information cards at the top, as well as the funding. The box here on the bottom left gives you the average achievement rate for that standard across all providers. So it was for last year 55%. And if we hover over more detail, this is a very popular standard. It's got 160 providers. So it's kind of a slightly messy pie chart. If you've got a standard that's not delivered by a few number of providers, then obviously it'd be much clearer to see what proportion is delivered by which provider, which is kind of useful for competitor analysis in terms of what's happening on a particular standard. Okay. So as I said before, with this particular page, you can use it to determine who's been delivering which standard. So the next page is labeled Learning Difficulties and Disabilities page. This provides, we made a number of FOI requests, and we have information on, excuse me, the LLD rates for each apprenticeship. You can filter for a particular apprenticeship. So if I go for carpentry, again, it will filter the table. It will tell me that last year there were, for carpentry anyway, 4,551 starts, and of those, 941 reported themselves with an LLD, which accounts for basically an LLD rate of 20%. Interestingly, this is up 2% on the previous year, which was the LLD rate was only 18%. If I just deselect, we can actually filter the column. We can sort the column by the highest rates, and we're only including here standards where the number of starts is more than 500. And as you can see, Equine Groom had a LLD rate. There were 32% of starts reported some kind of learning difficulty or disability or health problem. Horticulture and landscape construction operator was 28%. Why is this useful? It's probably useful really for providers if you're delivering any of these programs to know what the kind of the learning difficulty rate is, because that presents challenges for you, and you can benchmark whether your particular cohort is got a higher rate than might be expected, and that has an impact on firstly delivery, but also when you need to talk to, for example, Ofsted about performance. Okay, the next page allows you to look at a specific location and see look at whose locations of which providers are delivering where. If I again search for, say, University of Reading, we find that based on learner location from the local authority district location of learners, we can say they come from Wokingham and Buckinghamshire. If I selected South Essex, for example, we can see that most of their learners come from Basildon, Southend-on-Sea, Thurrock, which is obviously the South Essex area, but some has been in the past delivery in other places as well around the country. So it gives you an indication of location activity for a particular provider. The next page in AID is kind of the reverse. It allows you to select a particular location and then see who's delivering in that location. It's all based on publicly available local authority district labels in ILRs. One can either use the drop-down list. I'll select Barking and Dagenham. The map will automatically filter and the table will update and will list all of the providers who are operating in that area. If I unclick, I can actually zoom in and use the map, and I can then click on one location, which is Mid Suffolk, and we see the list. Mid Suffolk has 217 starts across basically a handful of providers, as we can see at the top of the list. If I hold the control key down, I can actually select the area next door and a couple of other locations. As you can see, I'm selecting now East Suffolk, Mid Suffolk, South Norfolk. And this is one way to explore what might be the catchment area you think might be of your learners if you're a regional or locally based provider. Again, the table updates, and we can see the list of who has the most learners in this collated location. And finally, the last page just gives you some information on the numbers of learners for each area split by sector. So as we can see in the table, basically business law business administration law gives you data by level 2s. If I click on business administration law, we can see that the chart will update, and we can see the sector information, the split. One can also select by map. So if we pick on Mid Suffolk, again, it gives us more detailed information on, in Mid Suffolk, we've got 217 starts, 53 are doing business administration law sector based standards. Health and care basically account for another 53. So that is a quick overview of how to use AID. I will now go back to my slides, so bear with me. Just a reminder, go to resources, Aptem Intelligence Dashboard, and that will enable you to get access to it. Okay. So back to our presentation. Bear with me. So that was aid. So getting access to aid, as I've said before, I seem to be repeating myself on this one. It's free. Go to either this link or use the QR code, and you can get access to the data. Just as a high level, in terms of half year data for this current academic year, in terms of standards, starts are up by, say, just under 1%. Previous year actually was up by 2.5%, and the full year actually last year was only up 0.7%. So I'm assuming that we're still seeing more apprenticeship starts, but it's slightly slowing compared to the number of additional starts we had after the COVID period, which isn't really surprising. The standards which are growing fast are business analyst, paramedic, passenger transport operative, and senior people professional. Also AI data specialist, which isn't surprising. If you look at age, you'll be able to identify standards in other areas that are also growing. Custody and detention professionals actually seen quite a large drop. That seems to be basically because the Ministry of Justice, which is the main provider, seems to be training fewer individuals on that standard this year at the moment. Okay, some providers are rapidly increasing. For example, Best Practice Network are up 95%, University of Reading's up 93%, Harper Craven up 93%. In terms of providers, there are 17 providers with over 1,000 starts in this half year, and Multiverse is now the third largest. Used to be, I think, fifth largest last year. So in terms of making the data, I haven't seen any, I don't know where we are with comments in the chat, but so think about what your strategic and business challenges are. What are the key questions in terms of where the market's going, which programs are your strengths, how are you doing against external benchmarking, and you can use aid to build external benchmarks, and use the data within aid and other sources to answer these questions in terms of exploring how to meet business challenges. And I'm not sure, James, whether we've had any questions. Can you filter by provider type, HE? I'll come back to those. Okay. So I don't see at the moment any kind of specific thoughts in the chat, but so we'll come back to this later. Finally, it's something I haven't done yet, and we haven't done yet. We're focused on apprenticeship data, but I want to mention that the DfE, formerly ESFA, also publishes data on AEB, adult education budget, and other educational programs that they fund. These data sets are available. We haven't got round yet to incorporating these into aid. Maybe we'll look to build a separate tool. But if you're operating in other areas of ESFA or formerly ESFA funded programs, for benchmarking purposes, the data is out there and you might want to make use of it. Okay, do we have any questions and comments in the chat? James?
Yes, so we got one question. Can you filter by provider type, for example, higher education?
I'm afraid we can't. But if you type university into the search box, obviously it will list every provider with university in the name. And then you can kind of tick all the ones you want using the control and the mouse click. So hopefully that answers that. So you can do it indirectly, but not directly.
Great, thank you. And one final question for the moment. Can you let me know when the individual standard achievement rates on dashboard 5 of the aid will be updated, as it is suggesting that the achievement data is 23-24, but the achievement rates are the same as last year?
Yes. So the achievement rate data, off the top of my head, is released in the end of June, if I recall. So so in June 24, they would have released, sorry, I think it's the end of June. It's just before the end of the academic year. So if I recall, June 24, they released the achievement data for the year ending July 23. So in a couple of months' time, we should have that data, and that's when we'll update it. It's just with achievement rates, the DfE have this 1 year time lag, and that's why we're not able to have that data more current.
Great. Thank you, Mark. One more question just come through. Is there a way to copy and paste the data?
Yes. We have actually not enabled that on the dashboard. If there are particular data tables you want, data you want, please come and talk to us. Is the answer.
Brilliant. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
That seems to be all the questions for the time being. So that just leaves me to say thank you for running today's session. We hope you all found, everyone in attendance found today useful. And as we're coming towards the end of this session, we invite you to visit our website if you wish to catch up with any of our industry webinars on demand. I'll just pop the link to our website. That's in the chat now. So looking ahead to our next couple of webinars, on Tuesday the 29th of April, 11 a.m. to 11:45 a.m., we're running our next customer training webinar on short course delivery for non-apprenticeship learners within Aptem. And on Wednesday the 14th of May, 11 a.m. to 11:20 a.m., we are running our Aptem Enroll Showcase webinar, where we will take you on a whistle-stop tour of Aptem Enroll, our remote enrollment solution that transforms how providers onboard learners. We will be sending out the webinar invites shortly. Of course, the Aptem customer training is for Aptem customers only. So we hope to see you at those sessions. Thank you once again, Mark, and to you all for joining today. Please look out for the recording in your inbox in the coming days. The recording will also be uploaded to our website, which you can access via that link in the chat. And I wish you all a good day. Thanks very much.
Thank you for joining, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.